Would a rose by any other name smell as sweet? Would a government program with no name at all be just as effective? We'll be talking about that today, as a matter of fact. We've got a great episode prepared for you today with distinguished guests such as the legendary Steve Rich, the magnanimous Jeff Arnell, and the wildly popular Scott McKinley. But before we bring on our distinguished guests, we've got a couple news stories that should be of interest to all of you. So first, you don't need a well-known name to succeed. In fact, apparently, you don't need a name at all. The Economic Development Corporation of Utah has started working under a 3-year contract to develop the economy of, you guessed it, northern Utah. But part of that contract involves establishing an entity to conduct all the operations of the effort. The effort has been going for several months and apparently is going well, even though the entity does not yet have a name, logo, or website. What they've been focusing on is putting together materials that promote northern Utah and sending them to what are called site selectors, which are people or companies that specialize in finding locations for business expansions or relocations. Materials have been sent to 800 national site selectors, and the group has even conducted a marketing trip to Northern California for one-on-one meetings with some of those site selectors. Chris Roybal, the executive director of the effort, says that by the middle of December they should have a name and a logo finalized and a working website hopefully by the end of the year. If you've thought about going back to school to get a Master's of Business Administration, apparently the David Eccles School of Business is a great place to do it. The Eccles School's MBA programs have been winning top 10 awards for a few years now, but their 2 MBA programs, the full-time program and the executive program, earned number 6 and number 4 spots respectively in the Bloomberg Business Week listing of best business schools between 2019 and 2020. Much of the credit for the rise in rankings is the school's shifting focus on entrepreneurship as an essential part of the curriculum, which also makes their MBA programs more applicable to individuals serious about starting their own businesses than more traditional MBA programs, which tend to focus more on managing larger budgets and workforces and the challenges associated with that. In addition to being top 10 in the Western United States, the executive MBA program also took number 21 nationally and number 98 in the entire world. Alrighty, we're going to start bringing on our guests, but first, police officers have a tough job. They spend their days in service to their communities and can face life-threatening situations as a result. That is why Salt Lake Wholesale Sports offers unmatched discounts on the best brands of duty and self-defense ammunition to law enforcement professionals. Salt Lake Wholesale Sports is a contract provider of ammunition to law enforcement agencies in Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Montana, and has made it their business to provide exactly the products that law enforcement professionals need for their protection both on and off the job. Salt Lake Wholesale carries the most reliable and high-performing brands of ammunition such as Blazer, Federal, and Spear, all of which have product lines designed specifically for law enforcement and come in everything from low-grain FMJ for practicing at the range to higher-grain hollow point for home defense or even on the job. Law enforcement professionals can take advantage of an unmatched discount by going to saltlakewholesalesports.com. They've just launched their new website to make it even easier for law enforcement to take advantage of their discounts. Again, that's saltlakewholesalesports.com for law enforcement discounts on ammunition, including brands such as Blazer, Federal, and Spear. Salt Lake Wholesale Sports, serving those who serve. Alrighty, now for our guests today. Our first guest today is Jeff Arnell with Columbia Pest Control. He is going to give us some tips on keeping the bugs out of our warm houses this winter and answer some of my deepest questions about pests. Jeff, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, question number 1. Columbia Pest Control, how long have you been doing it?
Personally, I've been doing it for 5 years. The business itself, the gentleman I took over for was in the business for almost 45.
Wow.
And his father before him was in the business for about 25 or 30. So the company itself has been around for more than 70 years.
Holy cow.
It's been a long time.
All right, so you cover this, just the Wasatch Front area?
Predominantly from Point of the Mountain up to Cache Valley.
Okay.
We will go further depending on the size of the job, but for general pest control, we have to limit our demographic because we don't want to drive an hour to get to a job, then an hour to get back to another. It doesn't make any sense financially.
Right. absolutely. So we'll ask the most pertinent question before I get to my more weird ones. Winterizing your house, keeping the bugs. It seems like when it starts to get cold, all the spiders try to come in, all the bugs try to come in. How do you prevent that?
A lot of different things you can do on your own, making sure that your windows are in good condition. I understand that windows are very expensive to have replaced, and you don't need to have your windows replaced. You can just simply get them caulked properly, and if you don't know how to do that, have a professional do it. You can make sure that you have good weather stripping, checking all your doors. Oftentimes I tell customers who have a constant issue, especially with rodents that come in, to check the amount of space, the gap that's underneath their door frame going into their home. Go out at night when it's dark, shine a flashlight at the base and have someone inside, and if they see lights coming through, then you know you need to put some kind of stripping or some kind of border around there to prevent bugs from coming in. But you got to be honest, bugs are going to find a way in. If you've got older homes, cracks and crevices, they're going to find their way in. And oftentimes that's why it's necessary to have regular pest control to keep them under control.
Okay, so there are some things that people can do on their own, and in the case where it's not working and they're not able to figure it out, or even if they are able to figure it out, bugs are still going to make it in, and they can utilize some pest control services.
You will never 100% be able to get rid of bugs out of your house, no matter what you do.
So pests are not just bugs, right? You cover other types of pests?
My profession, pests can be dealt with, also like weeds are considered pests.
Oh, okay.
Certain trees are considered pests, but I deal with the vertebrates and non-vertebrates like rodents, raccoons, skunks, bed bugs, termites. I don't deal with a lot of agriculture and landscaping because it's just, I don't have the time for it, and it's a whole nother area of work that requires extra equipment, extra time, and I just don't have that ability to do that.
Gotcha. So the killing of bugs is more appealing than
That's
the
my
gardening
forte.
I got it.
That's
All
where I'm
right,
good.
Sweet. Okay, so I have some deep, dark questions about bugs and other pests. Box elder bugs.
The bane of my existence.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Well, mine too. So we have these our house has these enormous south-facing windows. They're probably 7 feet tall and 4 feet wide, maybe 8 feet tall, I'm not sure. They're just enormous windows. There's 4 of them, south-facing wall, and in the summertime especially, just the entire wall, all the window frames, just crawling with box elder bugs. And I've tried a lot of things to get rid of them. How do you get rid of box elder bugs?
If you can figure out a way to get rid of them completely, you're going to be a very wealthy man, because getting rid of them completely is pretty much impossible.
Gotcha.
You'll notice as the year wanes on, the sun kind of changes the way that it rotates.
Yeah.
And the beginning of the year, the spring, you're going to find that the majority of your box elder bug problems are on the east side of the house and the south side, because that's where the sun faces most of the day. And as the fall becomes closer and the summer wanes on, you're going to find them on the south side all the time, and then the west side of the house. Typically, the fall time of the year is where the box elder bugs are the biggest problem. The biggest issue with box elders is we can hit them with the chemical. Very standard insecticide that a lot of companies use, and it'll knock down whichever ones get touched with the chemical. However, because they are airborne and there's just so many of them, you'll get a call the next day or a couple days later from a customer and say, hey, they're all over my wall again, you didn't do your job. Say, well, that's not true. I took care of the ones that we sprayed and we hit. But they came in from the trees, they came in from the ground, and there's just no way to eliminate them completely without burning your house down, let's be honest. But there's just no way to do it. I mean, they have a very hard shell, and you cannot penetrate them with the residual as well as you can with other bugs, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
So sometimes it requires more than one treatment.
Well, sometimes burning down the house feels like a viable option.
Might not be a bad idea.
Hope my insurance company's not watching. Okay, so box elder bugs, very tough to get rid of, which definitely makes sense. Is that, do you find that you can slowly diminish the box elder bug population if you come back quarterly on a...
More regular treatments do help. It also depends on what kind of trees you have around your home. If you are surrounded by box elder trees or elm trees or cottonwoods, you can't ask your neighbors to cut down their trees. I mean, box elders will fly several hundred yards to get to other homes. So you're not likely going to get rid of them 100% unless you live in the desert where there's no trees and habitat for them to live in. So if you like living in Utah, you're going to be dealing with box elder bugs. That's just the unfortunate reality of it.
We have a massive box elder tree in our front yard.
Good luck to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I called it their Mecca. That'd probably be
really
offensive today, so maybe I shouldn't have said that. But
I'm not offended personally.
Okay. All right. So other than box elder bugs, are there common type of pests that you see pretty frequently with homes?
There is another bug which is very similar to the box elder, which is called an elm seed bug, which looks like a miniature box elder. And people call me and say, I've got baby box elders. I've said they're actually elm seed or elm seed beetles, a lot of people call them. Just as difficult to get rid of, and there's just as many of them, but they're a lot easier to get into your home because they're literally a third the size.
Yeah.
I also find that termites, a lot of people don't think we have termites in Utah, but we do. They're all subterranean, they're underground, they usually go from the ground up. So those are sometimes difficult to get rid of because trying to get to them is a little more challenging. For the most part, the standard issues in Utah, like the wasps and the hornets and the mosquitoes, everything, it's just a general treatments, more regular treatments really do help with that situation.
So what's the situation surrounding larger animals that someone would consider a pest? So we have this big shrub in our front yard that over the winter time, deer will come and just nibble off a bunch of the branches, and so we'll have this crazy like mushroom top that they can't reach, and then this very thin thing that's ridiculous down there. I'd like that to stop.
Deer are considered pests.
Okay.
I love deer. I think they're beautiful animals, and if I see one on the side of the road, I'll stop and watch it. They're just beautiful, but they do a lot of damage. And unfortunately, there really isn't any chemical, even the ones you can buy in the general stores that say, oh, spray this and they'll stay away. It doesn't work. So the best way to keep them away is to put up fences. And they're not attractive. A lot of fences are just not pretty. To have a 8-foot fence in your yard, it's not pretty. But if you want to preserve your trees or the bushes that you're trying to preserve, you have to cage them, unfortunately. Other animals that are considered pests, raccoons. Raccoons are a big problem. This year has been a real issue with rodents. Rats and bountiful have been a massive problem. Voles in your lawn, also considered a pest. Pretty much anything that annoys you and you want to get rid of, you consider it a pest.
Fair enough. So are there, as far as options, like with the rodents and the rats, obviously killing them is not a problem. Are there more stringent regulations when it comes to the larger animals?
There are some animals that it is illegal to exterminate.
Okay.
Bats are preserved. They're
Really?
actually, you cannot kill them. If you are caught, you can actually be fined. You can lose your license over it. Woodpeckers, they do a lot of damage to a person's house. You cannot exterminate them. It is against the law to kill woodpeckers.
Interesting.
And there are a lot of other little bugs and other critters here and there, but things like rats and mice, you can knock them down all day long. Baits, traps, the state doesn't care. Get rid of them. Just knock them down because they can become a real problem. They carry disease. And getting them away from your home, away from your pets and your children is a good idea.
So definitely, if you have an animal problem of some kind, you need to call a professional.
Absolutely. A lot of times people will try to DIY it. They'll try to take care of it on their own, and I get that. Pest control can be very expensive at times. There are some companies that are more expensive than others, and there are some that just aren't worth their weight in salt. But if you're having an issue, and you try to take care of it on your own, absolutely try. But if you don't know what you're doing, just call somebody who knows, and they'll come out and take care of it for you.
Is there a place online or somewhere they can look for to see what the regulations are and what their options are with a specific type of critter or pest?
There are some EDU sites and .gov sites that they can look at. The Utah State University Extension, they have a wonderful database of information like that.
Nice.
I think it's utahstate.edu. I can get that information for you, but they've got all the critters in Utah you can think of and the regulations and different things. In fact, they'll even tell you their Latin name if you're brushing up on a different language too.
So with all of this, how does Columbia Pest Control fit in? So do you do quarterly services? Is it all contract based? How do you work?
We don't do contracts. There are very few companies in Utah that do not require contracts. In my opinion, coming to your house 4 times a year is not a bad idea. However, it's not always necessary. For me to put somebody in a contract, and even if I'm doing a good job, if they decide that they don't want to be in a contract anymore, and I require a fee to cancel, that's not fair. And if I'm not doing a good job, which isn't going to happen, but if I'm not doing a good job and they want to cancel my service and I charge them for canceling, that doesn't make any sense. So what I do is customers will call me when they're having problems and I come out and take care of it. Some will request that I come out on a regular basis. They say, call me every month, call me every other month, or call me twice a year. And I will put you on a database and I'll call you and I'll get you scheduled.
Nice.
But you are not required to have me come out, especially this time of year. It's cold outside. Anybody who goes outside and sprays for bugs when it's below freezing, they're stealing from you. There's no reason to. Everything outside is pretty much underground or dead. So that's one of the things that sets us apart is we don't require contracts. We are very fair with our pricing. Just the other day, about a month ago, I made several phone calls to some of the larger companies in Utah. I'm not going to mention their names here, but there were some who were charging literally 3 times more than I was for the same service.
Wow.
$279 for a service where I charge $90. And that didn't make any sense to me, and they required contracts. So that's what sets us apart a lot of times, is we go above and beyond for our customer. We actually do more than what they ask, because we want to make sure they're happy, and we want to make sure they tell their friends, and we want to have them for a customer for the next 40 years, and their children, and their nephews, and their nieces, and their cousins, and their neighbors, and that's what we're trying to do.
That's phenomenal. So if people want to get in touch with you about your services, what's the best way to do it?
Best way is to call me. You can text me or email me. My phone number is very simple. Everything goes through me. I deal with everything. I am very hands-on. I want to make sure that every call that comes in, if I can't get to it, leave me a message. Send me a text. I will get back to you as soon as I can. And if I can't help you, I can refer you to somebody that I trust, that can take care of you, especially if I'm so busy. Some people don't want to wait 5 or 6 days, and I understand that. It's not offensive. If I can't get to you, I just can't get to you. I can only work so many hours a day.
Sure.
I want to get home to my family just like everybody else does.
Oh, yeah.
So if I can't help you, I'll refer you to somebody who can, and they'll take care of you almost as well as I will, but not quite as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for
Thank
being
you.
here, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
All right, so while we're waiting for our next guest to get ready, I want to do a quick shout out to ourselves, Venture Utah. If you want to be a guest on the show, it is 100% free to do so. All you need to do is go to ventureutah.com and fill out our form to become a guest, and we will contact you as soon as we have an episode that we feel like will fit your business. Being a guest on Venture Utah can allow you to reach between 2,000 and 2,500 viewers here in the state of Utah. So it can be a great way to get the word out on something that you're trying to expand or show yourself to be an expert in front of a lot of business owners and other people. So our next guest is Mr. Scott McKinley, back for another engaging conversation. Today we're going to talk about strategies you can use to get yourself out of a downward spiral. Scott, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
All right, so on that note, on that prompt, downward spirals can happen all the time.
Yeah.
I had one yesterday. So what are some ways that you've discovered to help people get out of a downward spiral?
I think the best thing is pay attention to how you're feeling. Start learning to pay attention to your body, to your emotions, because our brain has a really good way of communicating with us when we're starting to get into that. You start feeling anxiety. Well, if you're in a situation where you really shouldn't be feeling anxiety, it's usually just a thought process that you're having. And for the biggest, makeup of what causes that is not being present. So learning to be present is huge. I'm sure you've heard people say, well, focus on being present, but what does that mean to you to be present?
To me, being present, I mean listening to what's going on.
Okay.
Focusing on what's in front of you.
Okay, like the moment, like right now.
Yeah.
But the problem is we get accustomed to, we get trained, we get used to. There's a song by my favorite band, Pearl Jam. It's called Present Tense. And he says, Eddie Vedder, the guy who wrote the lyrics, he says, you can spend your time alone redigesting past regrets. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people, when they're by themselves, when they're driving in the car, when they're laying in bed, they just get used to focusing on the past instead of what's going on right now, what's currently happening. And to continue the line from the song, he says, or you can learn to forgive yourself. You can forgive yourself for mistakes that you've made. And that's really a big problem for a lot of people, is letting go of the past, because there's not a damn thing you can do about the past. It is what it is. And there's just this misconception that it's a place that exists, or the future. So if you're paying attention to your emotions are going to lead you to what you're thinking about. So if you're feeling, like I said, if you're feeling that anxiety, or if you can train yourself to recognizing when you're starting to feel stress, most people feel it in their stomach, or they start to get headaches, or their shoulders start to get really tight. Start learning to recognize that that's your body's way of saying, hey, stop thinking about what are you thinking about right now? What is it that's causing you to start feeling this stress? It's usually looking at the past, which again, nothing you can do about the past, or it's thinking about future events. It's thinking about something that might be happening with anxiety and with fear. And the crazy thing is that the future is not guaranteed. We walk outside and get hit by a bus and it's done. The only moment that matters is this moment right now. But we just get so used to just being in the future, thinking about the future, or looking into the past. So for a lot of the clients I work with, it's just teaching them to start to get present and to identify when, okay, I'm not living in the moment. I need to spend more time focusing on what I'm doing right now. And for a lot of people, Eckhart Tolle is a really good teacher about presence. He's the one that wrote the book, The Power of Now. So if you need to learn how to get present, that'd be a huge recommendation. Read that book. He's really hard to listen to because he's very soft-spoken. Every time I listen to him, I kind of start to fall asleep. Not that he doesn't have tons of words of wisdom, but it's a lot easier to read him. But he teaches people to really stop living for the means to the end. You wake up in the morning so you can rush to go to the bathroom, so you can rush to go brush your teeth, so then you can rush to get the kids up, so you can rush to get in the shower. Start enjoying every aspect of what you're doing, and that will help you to start getting present and stopping that downward spiral that you were asking so much about.
So I like early on you talked about forgiveness, forgiving yourself for those past things and letting them go,
Right.
and focusing on the future. And this may seem, and maybe I'm the only one who has this issue, but how would you define forgiveness? The question is, how can you forgive yourself? How do you do that? How do you go through that process? But I think there's a question that needs to be answered before that,
Yeah.
which is, what is the definition of forgiveness?
Yeah. I think we can all reflect back, speaking of another song, there's a great song written that so many people I'm sure you've heard it a million times. Let it go. Just let it go. Realize that we make mistakes, but that's how we get experience. We get experience from the mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And if you can just start learning to just let things go. And look, contrast is not bad. I tell people this all the time. You can gain clarity from the contrast, but the problem is so many people just want to focus on the contrast. But if you can go, okay, I screwed up. This is what I did. I don't want that. So what do I want? Well, what's the opposite of that? Start learning to take those can't stands from your past and go, okay, I don't want to do this again. So instead of being focused on not doing that again, because thoughts become things, and if all you're focused on is not screwing up, not screwing up, not screwing up, you're going to screw up. So if you can go, okay, so what do I want? Well, I want this to be that. I want the opposite of this. So if it's, I've been really bad with money. My credit is awful. I've just never learned to save. If you continue unforgiving, not letting that stuff go and getting the clarity from that of going, okay, so what do I really want? I want to start to learn to get better with money. That's going to start inspiring you to take action that will lead to that. So it starts by letting it go and gaining the clarity from all of that contrast. There's a really simple exercise that I teach my clients is you make a T-chart. And on the left side of that T-chart, you write all of the crap, all of the things that you just are struggling with from that past experience. Maybe it's a job that you didn't like or you're currently in. Maybe it's a relationship that you've had. Maybe it's your inability to forgive yourself for mistakes you've made in the relationship. List all those things, all of that contrast, and then go line by line. Okay, so what's the opposite of being in an abusive relationship? I want to be in a relationship where I feel supported and loved. What's the opposite of making bad decisions with money? I want to make good decisions with money. It's amazing what starts to happen when you let go of the past and the things that you've done wrong and gain the clarity from it and start putting your time and your action and your thoughts and your focus into making those things happen and being present and looking for proof that those things are starting to manifest in your life with gratitude. Gratitude is a really good way to stop that downward spiral. For a lot of people, it's just recognizing that they really have so much to be grateful for in times of stress, even with financial stress. When I first got into coaching, that was one of the things that I wanted to work on was my financial situation. And by doing that can't stand, must have, by taking that contrast and turning it into clarity, and then looking for proof that there was abundance financially in my life, and starting to be grateful for the things that I did have, being present. I mean, it was something I had to teach myself when I became a business owner. You know what it's like to be a business owner. You know, you don't have a paycheck. You've got clients. And the first Christmas that I worked as a business owner with my wife, it was a couple of weeks before Christmas time, and we didn't have Christmas paid for, and we had rent coming up, and we didn't have all the money that we needed for rent. Then I sat down with my wife and I said, look, let's have a conversation. We need to have a conversation about this. And she said, okay. I said, here's where we're at. Here's where we need to be. We're not there. She said, okay, well, what would we teach our clients? And I said, we would be present. We would say, okay, right now, how are we doing? We have a house. We're in this beautiful house. There's heat. We've got plenty of food in the fridge. We do actually have money in the bank. So right now, in this moment, we're okay. Yeah, rent's due in 2 days and we don't have it. But right now, we're okay. Okay, so we don't need to suffer unnecessarily. Another Eckhart Tolle quote that changed my life. He says, suffering is necessary until you realize it's unnecessary. And we were able in that moment to go, right now we're okay. So what do we need to do? Well, we could call some people that we've been potentially getting ready to sign up for coaching. We can follow up with some leads that we had. So instead of like going down that path of being the victims and being miserable and keeping us from going out and being inspired and using our creativity, that's where most people go, is they go down that rabbit hole. So by being present, we got where we needed to be. We made a phone call and boom, we had 2 new clients before the rent was due. Plenty of money, had an amazing Christmas, and it starts by being aware of how you're feeling, of just paying attention to those emotions and going, so what do I want to be feeling? Let's flip it. Let's gain clarity from that contrast. Takes time to practice to really master it, but the more you do it, the more repetition, the more you make that a part of your process when you're in those moments, you'll find it gets easier and easier to shift out of that downward spiral.
So you step back, you say, look at me right now, look at things right now. We're fine.
Right.
We're okay.
Right.
Now, how do we get the outcome that we want? Not avoid the outcome we don't want, but how do we get the outcome we do want?
Right.
How do we obtain that?
Instead of wasting that energy on unnecessary suffering, let's use that energy kind of like jujitsu, and let's flip that energy and use it against itself and turn it into clarity. This is what we need some clients. Okay, so what do we need to do to go out there and to get some clients or to make the change in the relationship? It's amazing what happens by just being present.
You've given me some ideas actually for, so I won't give any details here, but I have a client who owes me a substantial sum for work that I've performed that has kind of ghosted me.
Right.
And haven't heard from him in 2 weeks, though I've tried many times to contact him. So, and that's been causing a lot of anxiety because I'm looking at, my payroll obligations and what's coming up, and I don't know if the numbers line up, and it's kind of giving, it's starting that downward spiral and realizing like, you know what, I'm okay right now. I've got what I need right now, and this is the outcome I want. I need to have enough money to cover those things. That's the outcome I want. Now, how do I go make that happen?
Right.
Regardless of what this client does, how can I go and make that happen?
Right. Go focus on something that's going to be productive rather than something that's just going to make you angry, get you upset, block you from that creative energy, and reach out to that guy and go, look, here's what I'm looking for. I just want to get a resolution here. I'm willing to work with you. I don't want you to be afraid when I call or if you see a text from me. I want to cultivate this relationship. Well, that's what you want. You don't want to have a client that makes you mad and that avoids you. So put the time and energy into that client, focusing on what you want from them as well. In an agape love, no judgment. Look, we've all been there. We've all had things. There's obviously a reason why he's not answering your calls. He must be, if it's fear, he's being led by fear. You lead with love. Joe's taught you about agape love.
Oh, yeah.
Practice agape love for that. What do you need from me? Reach out to him and say, how can I serve you? How can I help you? Maybe it's just making a payment arrangement or something along the lines that gives him a little bit of that relief. But by you being able to practice that for yourself, you'll find it's really helpful in situations like that.
That's awesome. So real quick reminder for people who want to get in touch with you, best way?
You can email me, scott@toevolvecoaching.com. You can call me on my cell phone. You can take the assessment. You've got the link to the assessment somewhere around here. And yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Well,
Either
thank
way.
you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Cameron.
This is a great conversation.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so while we're waiting for our next guest to prepare to come on set, I want to do a quick shout out to Robin Hood Studios. That is my company. That's the company that I own and partially operate. I used to do it all, but now we've grown and it's a wonderful thing. Robin Hood Studios, we do what we call the Unlimited Videos package. We can come to your place of business or really any location in Salt Lake, Davis, or Weber counties and do in a full hour of filming with you. We do as many videos as you're prepared to film in that hour, and then all of the editing is included in the price. It's only $400. So you come, you get, or we come to you, you get professionally produced, professional quality videos for your website or for your Facebook page. If you want to do regular content, you can do a bunch, 4 or 5 videos at once and then release them weekly. You can do all of that for only $400. It's a fantastic deal that we love to be able to offer to our customers because the mission of Robin Hood Studios, again, is to bring the highest standard of video production quality to the smallest of businesses. And we're excited to be able to do that. So our next guest, our final guest for today is Steve Rich with our marketing department, a fixture in the community and a force for good for small businesses across the Wasatch Front. He is going to educate us on the right ways to think about marketing for your business and how to start the process the right way. Steve, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I'm excited for this conversation. So we've been working together for a little while, and I think it's been great so far, and I'm really looking forward to the future. My first question for you is, how did you get your start in marketing?
I always loved marketing. I read a lot of books even growing up. Even I was kind of nerdy, and as a teenager would read business books. And then I got my opportunity early. After I graduated from college, I worked for a broker, and then I got hired by Associated Food Stores. And my job there, when I first came on, was to help 70 independently owned store owners in rural areas. And they let me know that they needed more profit, they needed more sales, and by the way, they don't have any money. And so I just jumped in with both feet and figured out how to market them without using money. Total guerrilla style marketing, and put on events. And anyway, it worked out really good. After being with them the first year, those stores, the economy was pretty flat at the time, but those stores showed about a 32% increase. And it was shortly after that that the CEO came down and asked me to be vice president of Associated Marketing. I was only about 23 at the time, and
wow.
And then I worked with all sizes of stores, big chains, big stores, little stores, and it was kind of a neat learning thing because it wasn't like a chain where you could just dictate, here's what the stores do. Every store, because they were independently owned, I had to come up with the philosophy, I had to come up with the strategy, but then I had to teach and educate those owners so that implementation happened correctly and communication all the way down. So, but it was great. I was there 21 years and loved it, and then got to the point where I thought, you know what, I want to do stuff besides just grocery stores. So I picked a time and left and started the business I'm in now, and been in there since 2011.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So in your experience, so it sounds like you've worked with a gamut of smaller businesses with no money, and you've got the larger chains that have a lot more budget. How do you adapt your strategies to fit?
Even though there's the size difference, there's still the same problem that we all have. And today, none of us believe interruption marketing anymore. Interruption is a commercial. It's a billboard. It's those things that interrupt our daily lives. None of us believe celebrity endorsements that they really are using that product. What we believe today is people who we consider somewhat peers saying that they've used that product or used that service and had good results. And so today it's more important than ever to use guerrilla style marketing, to use influencers to kind of get that message across, because that's what we all believe. I mean, I don't believe when Tiger Woods says this, but if you told me you used this product, I'd believe you, and because you would give a testimonial on that. And so how do we get that happening for big and small stores? And you know, it used to be in the past you could just do a TV commercial and you'd hit half the public. Now most of us don't watch commercials, we don't believe them, we don't follow them, and so you have to look at new ways to get that word out.
We've run into that a lot as well. As we make videos, we've really tried to, it's important to us that we make a video that works, that's effective.
Sure.
And so we've had to look at what does work, what is effective, and we've consistently come back to testimonials, reviews, telling the right stories, you know, in the right way to a very specific audience, you know, those types of things, and being conscious of what our purpose is.
Yeah.
We're not trying to get them to buy usually. We're trying to just help them get to the next step.
Right.
And so it's very similar to that. So, in your experience, when you're working with a business that is really just trying to get serious about marketing, where is the best place to start?
So strategy comes, too many times people jump to the vehicle first. They think, oh, I better just flood social media, or I should buy radio, and all that should not even be in the equation until you come back with your strategy and say, okay, what position can I own in the market? What position is free that nobody else owns that I can, and something that I have a skill in or I have the ability to be. And so we go through the process to determine what those strengths are, where we're going to shine. And then now it's easier today to dictate who you're going to send that to. And so your money's much better spent if you target or segment your audience and say, okay, who am I sending it to? Great. I can resonate with that group and not have to send something that covers the age gamut of 20 to 90 or whatever. You can target it right in. And so those are some of our first thing is hurry and putting together a strategy of positioning, strengths, and then targeting. And then from there it determines, okay, what vehicles do I best use? What are people of that age group or of that demographic gonna, where am I gonna be in front of them? What can I do that will resonate with them?
So when a business has multiple product lines that may appeal to different demographics, different things, what do they kind of need to focus in on one of their product lines if they want to position themselves as in a certain way?
It makes some people crazy because they like to reduce it down, but if a company only has one target, it's not going to work. And the reason why I'm saying that is it's usually too big. People are saying, oh, I'm doing women, but I'm doing women 25 to 70. That's too big. You're not going to resonate with the 25-year-olds and the 70s, so you're going to try to stretch what you're saying to cover both, and in the end, you'll water it down for all sides.
Yeah.
So everybody should have multiple targets. And then if you have different products, I mean, when I work with an insurance agent, he actually has different targets, or she has different targets for auto insurance than they would for life insurance. There's probably different life stages, different age groups, and it's okay to do that and come in and determine where that is. Okay, when I put this message out, where am I going to put it? I'm going to put it where, if I'm targeting millennials, I'm going to put it where millennials can see it, feel it, and I'm going to use influencers that mean something to millennials. And it sounds more complicated, but really there's enough tools out there that you can pull that in and the results are you spend a lot less money wasting, and the message you send does get heard and seen by who you want to target.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So figuring out their position that they want to have, that they are capable of getting.
Yeah.
Figuring that out, and then identifying the audiences, the targets.
Exactly.
Okay. Is there anything else that they need to kind of have laid out before they start to?
Well, the only other thing that I would say that is probably the most important thing in my book is, like I said, we all believe influencers, we believe peers, we believe those people. If that's what we believe, then I almost feel like each one of us has a personal responsibility to take the time to shout out for those businesses we've worked with that are doing a good job. And I don't care if they're in your networking group or wherever, take the time to honestly give feedback on when you have a great experience, because that's what we're going to believe. And so those people that have performed well, have done great with customer service, or they kind of deserve that, because that's their best way of marketing, is to have somebody give a testimony, have somebody give a referral. So one of the things I tell most of my clients is start shouting from the rooftops about anybody that does a good job for you. In turn, as they do a good job, some of those people will step up and help shout out for them. But that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because that's what people believe today, and that's the way marketing is. And so we should, in my book, I always feel like I owe it to a company. If they've done a great job, I owe it to tell other people. I owe them to spread it with my friends, with my family. And so that's one of the pieces that I always add in. Most of my clients know that I expect them to every day be sharing the good results they've had working with people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you cover all of this stuff in your 8-week business blitz, right?
Yeah. We have business growth blitz. We go 8 weeks and we talk about the overall strategy, and then we also get into detailed specifics of how to work with different types of social media, how to work with email marketing, how to work with direct mail. We look at radio and TV and see where and if that makes sense and what to look for. And those courses are usually designed to help the business owner or business leader to know how to do it for themselves. And again, a lot of times they'll come back after they learn that and they'll say, I know how to do it for myself, but I don't want to do it. Steve, will you guys do it for us? And we'll end up doing it for them too. But what I like is teaching them so they know up front what to look for, what the strategy is, what they're trying to accomplish.
Well, yeah, you give them the tools that if they are willing and able to do it, they can do it.
Yep.
Based on what you've given them. And then a lot of times
Right.
we experience kind of the same thing. I did a lot of training on how to do video themselves and tried to do that for a little while, and I'll probably start it up again at some point, but that was our experience as well. As we got into it and people's eyes kind of glazed over after the first hour and a half, and they just decided that it wasn't worth doing it on their own.
Right.
So once they've got all that information well in hand, are there guidelines on how long they should stick to a strategy to give it time to see if it's working?
There are, and it varies by honestly by vehicle. So some people, and people will get mad at me for saying this, because obviously anybody that's selling any of those particular vehicles, they think that you should do that vehicle all the time, every month, and so. But we go through and we look at different social media. Okay, what do we do there? We look at, even like we say, how often should you do emails? How often should you do radio, if you're doing radio, or how often to do that? And each one of those we come back and say, okay, what's the right amount so that you're not overkill, but you're still in front of people enough, and then weigh that out and put that into practice. Because if you're, I used to, clear back when I was working with the grocery stores, we had some of the grocery stores that wanted to have this screaming hot promotion every single week. If you're screaming hot promotion every week, none of them are screaming hot, right? People just get used to it. It's not a big deal, and so they drive right past your store quite often. So you have to time it out too, so that people don't feel like you're every minute in their face with some other type of promotion or sales. And so we work together on putting together a promotional calendar with events and the right timing behind each of those.
That makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
it really kind of just depends on what it is.
Yeah, it depends on the type of what it is. Some of the things are, like, I'll just tell you with social media, some people think that, hey, I can make a big blast with social media and get a lot of followers and get a lot of business off of that. And social media is not designed that way. Social media has to be a rhythm. It has to be, you have to have some sort of consistency out there. Yeah, you have different posts that will make a blast, but if you don't show up for a while and then you try to show up, you won't get the reaction you want. So social media has to have a rhythm. You have to have something going regularly to keep that in front of people.
Absolutely. So that is all the time we've got for now, but what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
You can call our office. It's 801-784-7600, or go on to our website or our Facebook page. Look under our marketing department, and that's the name of our business, and we'd love to work with whoever.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure, thank you.
This was fantastic. Okay. And that is it for today's episode. If you have any questions for any of our guests, feel free to drop them in the comments and we will notify them that you did ask a question, and we'd love to have them respond to it. So we'll catch you next week for Venture Utah.